It's pretty wild to think about, but every single one of us started out as just one cell. That's it. From that one microscopic point, this impossibly complex journey began to create, well, to create you. So in this explainer, we're going to trace that incredible story step by step. So that brings us to the big question, right? How in the world does a single tiny cell transform into a thinking, feeling, complex human being? To figure that out, we've got to go all the way back to the very, very beginning. Okay, so to get any story started, you need the main characters. And in the story of how you began, that means we need to look at the fundamental biological ingredients that are required for life to even have a chance. And it all starts with these two incredibly specialized systems. You've got the male reproductive system, which produces sperm inside the testes, and the female reproductive system, which produces eggs in the ovaries. You can kind of think of these as the two factories that create our essential starting materials. And here they are, the stars of our show, the sperm and the ovum, or what we usually call the egg. These are our essential sex cells, also known as gametes. And here's the really important part. Each one carries exactly half of the genetic information needed to create a whole new person. All right, so we've got our ingredients. Now the real fun begins. This isn't just a simple meeting. It's the start of an absolutely epic migration and transformation. For the egg, its entire future comes down to this one moment. It's a critical fork in the road. See, if it isn't fertilized, it breaks down and is released during menstruation. The body just resets. But if fertilization does happen, that triggers a completely different chain of events, and it marks the very beginning of a new life. And check this out. This map shows that whole journey perfectly. Starting at day 0, right there in the fallopian tube, that's fertilization. The brand new cell, now called a zygote, starts dividing almost immediately as it travels. By day 4, it's a solid little ball of cells called a morula. And by day 7, it's changed again into a hollow blastocyst, and it finally implants itself into the wall of the uterus, its new home. Okay, this next part is where things get, honestly, kind of mind-blowing. We've got this simple little ball of cells, but how does it know what to become? How does it organize itself into a brain and a heart and bones and skin? Well, the answer lies in drawing up the human blueprint. It's all thanks to a process called gastrulation. Now, it sounds super complicated, I know, but you can think of it like this. That simple ball of cells rearranges itself into 3 distinct fundamental layers. These layers are like the primary colors of paint that an artist uses to create an entire masterpiece. First up, we've got the endoderm. This is the innermost layer. This layer becomes the body's internal engine room. We're talking the digestive system, the liver, the pancreas, and the inner layers of the lungs. It's the absolute foundation for processing energy and, breathing. Then you've got the middle layer, the mesoderm. This one is all about building the body's entire framework and infrastructure. It forms the circulatory system to pump blood, the skeleton for structure, and all the muscles for movement. It literally gives us our shape and our strength. And finally, the ectoderm, the outer layer. This one creates everything that connects us to the outside world, our skin, our hair, our nails. But here's the crazy part. This exact same layer also forms our entire nervous system, the brain, the spinal cord, all of it. So the very tissue that lets you feel a touch on your skin comes from the same source as the brain that actually processes that feeling. It's amazing. And this diagram just pulls it all together so beautifully. From just these 3 simple layers, the endoderm, mesoderm, and ectoderm, every single tissue and organ in your body is built. It's just an astonishing display of biological efficiency. Nothing is wasted, everything has a purpose, and it all starts from one of these 3 layers. Okay, so building a body is one thing, but keeping it alive and growing while it's being built, that's a whole other challenge. To do that, the embryo needs to construct this incredibly sophisticated built-in life support system. And here it is, the whole setup. The 3 key components of that system, the placenta, the umbilical cord, and the amniotic sac. Together, these 3 things create a perfectly controlled, perfectly safe little world for the developing fetus. First, let's talk about the placenta. This organ is absolutely remarkable. It's the ultimate interface, part bridge, part gatekeeper. It's where all the good stuff, like nutrients and oxygen, pass from the mother's bloodstream to the fetus, and where waste is sent back out. It is the lifeline. Simple as that. Now, inside that amniotic sac is the amniotic fluid, and it does so much more than you might think. It's not just floating around in there.
It acts as a perfect shock absorber. It provides warmth, and, get this, as the fetus swallows it, it actually helps develop its digestive and excretory systems. It's a true multi-purpose protective bubble.
So, after all of these stages, the cell division, the migration, the specialization, and building that whole life support system, what's the result? What does this incredible biological process actually lead to? It leads to this: a developing human with all its major systems in place, just growing and maturing. Every single step we just talked about, from that very first cell division to the formation of the placenta, was absolutely necessary to reach this very moment. But hold on, the story has one more fascinating little twist. We've been following the path of a single zygote becoming a single person. But what happens if, right at the beginning of that journey, that single zygote decides to split in two?
Well, that's how we get identical, or monozygotic, twins. One egg gets fertilized by one sperm, but then, in this remarkable biological moment, the zygote splits, creating two genetically identical blueprints. This is completely different from fraternal, or dizygotic twins, which happens when two separate eggs get fertilized by two different sperm. It's just a final, powerful reminder that even in a process as precise as this, there's always room for beautiful variations on the journey of how we all begin.